Hello, everybody. Good morning. How do I confirm you guys can hear me? Okay.
Good morning,
Good morning.
facilitator.
Good morning. It's good to have everyone here. My name is Gladys, student
Yeah.
recruitment specialist for Nile Online. I think should we take a few minutes before we start off?
So we're going to have this program from 10:30. We spare ourselves time to join. It's about 10:43. Time is not on our side.
Sorry about that. So we'll just start shortly. Thank you all for joining this very brief webinar. And we're going to be talking on the topic Beyond Boundaries, Building a Smarter Future for All. And our speaker is already here, Angela. So we'll start right away. Angela is a seasoned expert in online learning design and course development with over 8 years of experience in higher education. As a learning product team lead at Honoris United University's digital division, she has a proven track record of developing and optimizing digital education programs that deliver high quality learning. So Angela will be our speaker for today. Are you ready, Angela? Okay.
Thank you for the introduction, Gladys. To and jump into the presentation. Okay, wonderful. If at any point the slides are not moving, please feel free to draw my attention to that, and I will ensure that, or if you'd like me to go back, I will do that. So the title of my presentation this morning is From Workplace Gaps to Strategic Advantage. And before I commence with the presentation, I would like to give a little bit of background and context into what I will be discussing today. So as Gladys has mentioned, my name is Angela Ogorombi, and I'm the Learning Product Team Lead at Honoris United University's Digital Division. What my team does is we create high quality digital learning experiences for the tertiary learning audience. My role in that is to manage a cross-functional team that produces educational content from learning design through to multimedia production. And in that, we partner with academic institutions as well as industry experts and other subject matter experts to be able to ensure that our content is always high quality and relevant to not just the academic needs and academic rigor that is required of accredited and non-accredited programs, but also that it contains the industry relevance that ensures that the skills go beyond just the classroom. To ensure that we have excellent relevance and value in these programs that we collaborate in partnership with higher education institutions, one of the things that is important to me is to stay on top of industry trends regarding what is regarding what skills are valuable and also what is relevant given the shifting economic and global landscapes that we find ourselves in. Therefore, through our philosophy that learning is for everyone, we will be covering a topic that covers an exposition of the current research and data on the trends and workplace skills for business owners and leaders to thrive and ensure continued relevance and competitive edge in the Nigerian marketplace. To start off, I wanted to take us through a high-level overview of the shifting Nigerian skills landscape. In the past few years, especially with the advent of generative AI and the democratization of AI as a whole, we've seen an increasing demand in digital skills and technical skills in the Nigerian workplace. Digital skills refers to digital literacy, the ability to work in online collaborative environments, as well as more complex skills, including technical skills in data analysis, in data skills, data analysis, machine learning, cloud computing, etc. So digital skills is a spectrum from being able to type an email to being able to code. And these skills are seeing an increasing demand in Nigeria as we see this shift in skills. And I'll cover that shift in more detail. But as we can see from this slide, we have examples of the increasing emphasis being placed on digital and technical skills in the workplace. Further to that, we see that this is something that comes from, sorry, let me pause. I see that there are people whose hands are raised.
I'm wondering, maybe they're probably not hearing you, or it's a mistake.
Was the hands prepared? Are you there?
Yes, we can hear you.
I was
Hello?
trying to ask from the last slide if this presentation was prepared for last year, talking about 2025, we're in 2026. January is almost ending. Some people may have trained in 3 weeks in 2026 to get skills. So I want to know if the presentation was made for 2025.
Thank you for that question. The data is coming from 2025 because it's using 2025 labor data and statistics. So the general trends were observed over the course of 2025. Data for 2026 will only start to become available later in the year.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. I'll continue with the presentation. We will have a time for additional questions at the end of the presentation. With the background context that there's an increasing shift and demand for digital skills ranging from highly technical to more soft skills, it's important to also contextualize this within the Nigeria Agenda 2050 that also highlights digital skills as being necessary for global apologies. With that context, it's important to also consider that within the context of what is happening in the broader Nigerian landscape. So, for example, Nigeria Agenda 2050 also highlights the importance of competitiveness through skilled workforces for global competitiveness, and that's something that can be achieved through modern educational systems, and again, an emphasis on digital skills. In the 2025 World Economic Forum Future of Jobs report, there is also an indication that on a global level, there's a significant demand for reskilling and upskilling by 2027 due to the impact that automation and artificial intelligence, as well as green transitions, will make. Because of that, the data also shows that 70% of companies in sub-Saharan Africa indicate that right now there is a local skills shortage that hinders the ability for those organizations to grow because the local workforces do not have the requisite skills that are required for those organizations to continue their transition. While it does sound like there's a heavy emphasis on digital skills are supported by a broad range of competencies, and we'll cover some of those as well. In addition to that, 41% of core worker skills in Nigeria have already been expected to change over the next 5 years, which emphasizes the necessity of continuous learning and intentional reskilling throughout the course of one's professional career. That these days, it is not enough to simply have a first degree and then move through the workforce and improve in one's professional prospects, whether as a business leader or a business owner. The continuous learning and reskilling and upskilling is required to meet the changing and evolving needs of the local, regional, and global workforce. When we look at the global business transformation landscape, there are some macro trends that have been identified by the same research data that I'll be referring to throughout. And some of these macro trends can be grouped into 6 categories. Broadening digital access has increased the access to organizations and people to tools like the internet, generative AI, and other digital tools like e-commerce. And that means that businesses need to be able to adapt to meet their consumers or their end users where they are. So it requires a technical adeptness in digital tools because of the broadening access for that. And that goes beyond just the digital tool knowledge itself. It includes things like business strategy, leadership, navigating change. Those things are also required to navigate this changing landscape due to broadened digital access. The next one is the rising cost of living, being able to make decisions and also run the business in a way that factors the rising cost of living for the end consumer, as well as rising costs that would be incurred by organizations as the economy evolves. Reducing carbon emissions is one of the macro trends that we're starting to see, particularly in certain industries that are energy dominant or dependent, as well as those dependent on fossil fuels, so especially oil and gas. The global drive to reduce carbon emissions means that businesses need to fundamentally shift the way that they think about their operations and think about their supply chains, etc. And that requires leadership that has negotiation skills, communication skills, change management skills to navigate this changing shift in those particular industries. There's also a shifting focus on labor and social issues in organizations, or how organizations will address and modify those. We see this through things like an increasing global focus on DE&I initiatives. Being able to run your organization or lead your team through changes that have labor or social implications also requires an ability to think innovatively, to problem solve, to negotiate, and also to mediate and manage conflict within the organization, as well as tackle potentially sensitive topics with tact and also with business continuity in mind. The reality of slower economic growth also means that things that made sense for organizations to do 10, 15, 20 years ago may no longer make sense. And so leaders need to be able to think strategically and adapt to these slower economic growth, to the general trend of slower economic growth in their ability to run their organizations, and cultivating skills that allows one to move between these phases and make clear, strategic, and effective decisions is also something that will enable a positive career trajectory. And then perhaps the almost elephant in the room is the role that AI and improved information processing has made. The role and access of generative AI, as well as other AI tools, and the increased proliferation of machine learning has also meant that the average person now has access to these tools, and so do businesses. It's important for a business leader to, number one, understand what these tools are, what they do, and then also understand how these can be leveraged to optimize business operations, to enhance the efficiency of the team, to use these tools ethically, but to also use them in a way that adds a strategic advantage and a competitive advantage for your organization. And so this goes beyond the technical ability to code or to perform in a machine learning environment. While those skills are absolutely still necessary, when we think about the skills and the roles that are required to move through these macro trends, it goes beyond the purely technical competencies and also involves business competencies, soft skills, leadership, and so on. So through the lens of the shifting macro trends that are through the lens of the shifting macro trends that we expect to evolve the nature of work, particularly in the next 3 to 5 years, especially as these macro trends continue to evolve, we can distill the in-demand skills for the future into 4 columns. The first is human-centered skills, and this is where we have to think about analytical and creative skills, including resilience, agility, leadership, social influence, entrepreneurship. Those are all our human-centered skills that remain at the core of being able to adapt to the macro trends that are changing the world of work as we know it. And these are the skills that we need to build through life experience and also through intentional upskilling and reskilling. Technical skills will always have a place in the apologies. Technical skills will always have a place in the workforce, especially as we see this shift towards increasing relevance and dependence on technology to enhance the way that we make decisions, to give us access to data that improves the way that we make decisions, and to also enable leadership teams or other teams within an organization to access data that allows the business to then continue operating. Those technical skills that we're starting to see an increase in demand for are in the fields of cybersecurity, artificial intelligence, cloud computing, as well as machine learning and data science. Those skills are going to continue to, the demand for those skills is going to increase as our demand and dependence on digitization continues. And this is something that the data very clearly shows is going to be very relevant, particularly in the next 3 to 5 years. Sustainability and green economy also is also a skills pillar that we're seeing an increasing shift in, particularly as the realities of climate change and also environmental and social governance are growing in their relevance and importance in modern workforces. This means that this goes into 2 pillars, both things around solar installation, environmental engineering, green manufacturing, so some of the more technical topics in the field of sustainability, but also in ESG-related fields when we look at sustainable supply chain management, corporate social responsibility, and other areas that require the ability to identify challenges and demonstrate and apply critical thinking, problem-solving skills, and also have an understanding of the impact that certain things can make. And we see that especially in the ESG space and sustainable supply chain space. And then our final skills pillar that we see an increasing demand for is digital and data skills. And this, similar to technical skills, but also goes beyond that to include AI, big data, networking, technological literacy, data analysis, and we also see things like digital marketing. So this field is a bit more broad than the technical skills, because technical skills focuses more on those who do the work, and then our digital and data skills focuses on those who make decisions and who analyze the work. So they're not necessarily responsible for the technicality of creating data sets, but they do need to make decisions with those data that they receive. And so being able to interpret and understand data, apply that, whether it is for digital marketing, strategic decision making, those skills are also increasingly in demand as we have more access to more data than we've ever had before. Being able to use that data effectively to drive business effectiveness is also becoming increasingly important. And so what does that mean for the future of the workplace? Essentially, in this slide, we can see that although there is an increasing focus on technical skills, which we have seen throughout the presentation, we can also see that human-centric skills still remain a critical part of the of a core business leader and an effective business leader's toolkit. In this fast-paced technological environment, we still require people with strong business skills, entrepreneurship skills, innovative skills. Effective leaders and business owners need to be able to develop and acquire these skills to be compatible and also in alignment with increasing technical demands that are coming from the macro trends that we see in the global and in the regional environment. And so these skills can be distilled into AI and big data. We know that that's a technical skill, but we also know that along with the technical skills, we need to be able to have business leaders who can interpret that data, who understand how to use that data, who understand the limits of that data, and who can also perform basic data analysis to enhance their ability to make effective decisions for the continuity of their organization. An understanding of networks and cybersecurity, while it's something that has a technical underpinning, we know that an effective business leader still needs to have a good enough proficiency and understanding in network infrastructure and security to make sure that their organization is not being exposed to undue threats, given our increased reliance on the cloud and on digital and technical infrastructure. Technological literacy also remains foundational and essential for any modern business that is looking to succeed in the immediate and near future. Understanding how to use technology, and that is through digital literacy. So starting from things like being able to effectively communicate on email, using things like email, using digital conferencing tools, being able to use certain web interfaces and apps, right through to having an understanding of certain softwares that can enhance the effectiveness of your organization. Having that level of technological literacy can be the difference between a business leader that can make effective decisions for their organization that can enhance their effectiveness and a business leader who cannot. And those are skills that need to be acquired and they need to be evolved over time. As the technological landscape continues to change, it's important to have the skills that allow you to continue to evolve and upskill and reskill as those changes come into effect. Creative thinking also remains a top 10 skill in the in the list of essential skills identified by employers and business leaders, because there is an understanding that with all of the technological frameworks, we still require people who have creativity, who have innovation, who are able to generate the ideas that their technical team members can execute. Businesses still need visionaries to come up with the ideas, to innovate, to problem solve. And that is also a skill that is cultivated through time and intentional practice. Another skill that employers have identified as being essential for the development of a strong workplace and that remains necessary for the near to midterm is resilience and agility. Understanding how to manage change and adapt to it to be able to overcome challenges. This includes things like being able to put in place specific frameworks, to put proper risk and project management protocols into place, to have proper contingencies in your supply chain. All of those skills really underpin the ability for someone to be able to manage the change that is constantly evolving due to the macro trends that we're seeing in the global and regional environment today. Curiosity and lifelong learning is also a skill that's highly prioritized by employers and business owners as of 2025, which would be the data from last year. This is a skill that's still prioritized because it allows a workforce that is curious and has the desire to not only improve knowledge, but to problem solve, because it's through curiosity and the desire to continue learning that you build valuable skills that can then be diffused through the organization. You can solve problems and also innovate to identify what is the problem of tomorrow that I can start to solve today. Leadership and social influence remain critical skills that are valued at senior and executive levels where large teams are managed, and this requires skills in leadership frameworks, understanding how to motivate, inspire, and guide a team, understanding decision-making and change management frameworks at the organizational level. These skills are also high in demand and remain valuable, particularly at the senior and executive leadership levels. Talent management also remains in demand and critical skill. Organizations are constantly looking for ways to attract and retain and develop top talent, and key skills on how to manage and effectively move through these HR processes are in demand and therefore require intentional learning and time investment to ensure that those skills are continuously built upon. Our final two in-demand and essential skills for the future are analytical thinking, the ability to break down complex problems, analyze data, and then find solutions. These are skills that are valuable at every level of leadership at an organization, and especially more so when you are in a role that involves managing other people. And then finally, environmental stewardship. And this is a skill that is growing in its relevance and importance as organizations pivot to an increased focus on ESG, sustainable practices, and also mitigating the impact of climate change. We'll see these trends continue to change in the next years. And every year, we do start to see that some of these skills move up into the top 10 and some skills move down. In the past year, we've seen the technical skills move into the top 10. However, what we still see is a strong emphasis on human-centric business and analytical skills outside of the purely technical requirements that we see in the workplace. And that brings me to the end of my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Angela. That was a really nice presentation. I think we'll just go ahead to questions and answers because we already have spent a lot of time. Does anyone have questions, answers, contributions? Can you guys hear me? Okay. Do we have questions from the slide or from the presentation? So the speaker is able to answer these questions before we end the session. If in case you do not want to speak, you can actually drop your comments in the comments box and I would read it out just in case you do not want to speak. Okay. Someone's hand is up. James.
Okay, good morning. Please confirm you can hear me.
Yes,
Yeah. Okay.
yes, I can hear you.
So sorry, I want to ask something. Looking at the future of work from World Economic Forum 2025, I wanted to ask, considering people who are choosing courses now, I mean, we're in the student environment, we get to talk to students here and there all the time. And we get to also look at some courses students are picking now. Some persons are maybe trying to pick up courses around health, around medicine, and the rest of them. And so I want to ask, are there courses that would not be relevant looking at the future of work? Just so that parents don't get to invest and then students don't get to put in their efforts learning something that at the end of the day, it's not going to be relevant 2030 and beyond. So are we meant to advise against some courses, or are we meant to say, you know what, do these courses and at the end of the day, you'll be using technology to advance yourself in these courses? Is it not going to be a double work for them at the end of the day? So please advise, as regards this. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. That's a very good question, because what the data shows is that there are certain skills and there are certain academic and practical disciplines that remain relatively consistent and stable over time. And health sciences is an example of one of those where there'll always be a demand and the demand remains relatively stable over time. So there will always be a need for doctors and other health professionals. However, those industries are not immune from being disrupted by the advent of technology. And where we see those shifts, we'll see that in those curricula for those programs. So now medical students, for example, would be learning how to use these tools in addition to the regular skills that they would need to learn as part of their standard education. So I think when we look at these sort of, especially these top 10 skills lists, we're looking at the movement of skills year on year. And so what we're seeing is that between, let's say, 2024 and 2025, we've seen that these are the skills that are in demand for the next few years. And then in 2026, it's possible that we will also start to see some shifts. That's kind of where my team come in as well, in that what we do is we ensure that we are keeping an eye on these lists and these skills to make sure that when we partner with academic institutions, we're keeping these skills front of mind and ensuring that there are tangible ways that these skills are learned, practiced, and also cultivated in these academic programs. That said, we do also see that as new topics come into demand through to changing macro trends. So we are seeing that especially with AI. There are certain skills that start to drop down in relevance. And some of the data indicates that you're seeing that there's a decreased demand, not that there is no demand, but that there's a decreased demand for certain skills that are very, very foundational, because those skills are now being digitized. And that's why the digital literacy is so important. So an example of such a skill would be a transcriptionist. No longer would you need to have a huge amount of people in your organization who are dedicated to manually doing data capture, data entry, and transcribing, because there are so many technological solutions now that can perform those tasks. And so the emphasis of the skill has now shifted from a human who is doing that work manually to a human who understands how the technology works and how they can use the technology to then effectively enhance the skill. So I hope that answers your question.
Oh, yeah, it does. It helps a lot. It helps a lot. Yeah. I would just, I was also looking forward to maybe if the data of some courses that would be completely obsolete. And so admissions units or universities could advise about these courses so that people don't end up choosing some of these. Because we're looking at the future of work. I mean, there's no need you going through the university and at the end of the day, you don't see. But for example, I'm going to give you a practical example. For example, we're looking at courses like, even courses like natural sciences. Some courses around natural sciences are sometimes getting obsolete. Geology, even English, at the end of the day, some of these courses are getting obsolete. So, but then if the data is not there, then that's fine. But I'm just trying to say that, I mean, is there data or where one will have to point out to say, okay, I'm looking at some of these courses and it's going to get obsolete, in the future. So that's what I'm saying. Well, thank you for the.
You're welcome. And I think in that regard, there you would almost want to not look at the courses and focus on the skills, because every course teaches a set of skills, and those skills are what is valuable. So in certain subjects, maybe the subject matter itself might not necessarily relate directly to what that learner or student is going to be doing in the workforce. But in that course, they might learn analytical skills, communication skills, conflict resolution skills. And so regardless of the subject matter of the course, it's important that no matter what the content of the course is, we're making sure that the skills are being learned throughout that. So in an English course, for example, still very relevant. It's important to know how to communicate, how to write, how to structure arguments logically, and also how to communicate. Those are skills that are still valuable right through to executive leadership, regardless of what someone has studied.
Thank you so much, Angela. That was really helpful. I think we take one or two more questions so we can wrap it up since we are working with time. Okay, do we have any more questions? Okay, we have a comment. Let me read it out. Please, what courses can someone take to improve their technical skills? So, Angela, we have a question from someone. What courses can someone take to improve their technical skills?
So technical skills, it will first depend on what is the intention of you as the learner and how proficient are you intending to become. If your intention is to become conversationally proficient, if I can use that. So a level of proficiency where you understand how to use the skills and how to apply it to your business without necessarily going into the completely technical nitty-gritty, then There's diplomas and short courses that you can take on topics like how to sorry, it's just escaped my mind. But there are diplomas and short courses that you can take that will include things like data analysis. So how to use data analysis for business decision making. And those types of courses will also cover the foundational elements of how to analyze and interpret data sets, how to do things like pivot tables. And that could be in a short course where you have a very high level, although still very intentional learning journey, or something like a executive program where a course like that forms part of a broader curriculum on general business skills. So you could learn like business business analytics, data analytics, and how to use AI in business decision making. If you wanted to go a step deeper than that, then you'd probably be looking at something much more technical, which would be a full qualification. So that would be considering pursuing something like a bachelor's or master's degree in computer science, software engineering, cybersecurity. So that would really just depend on what you want to get out of that learning experience, and then that would determine the type of course. But there's definitely plenty of courses that would help one improve their technical skills. And I know that Nile Online also offers several of those courses.
Thank you so much, Angela. Thank you so much for your presentation. Thank you for answering our questions. I think we'll wrap up right now because we do not have more questions coming up and no one is raising up their hand. I think we'll call it a day here. Thank you so much to everyone who has participated in this webinar. It was really great having everyone here. So if anyone thank you so much. If anyone has questions going forward on how to improve their technical skills and all of that regarding the presentation, you can always reach out to us at Nile Online. We'd always be here to assist and render. I'm sorry, I did not realize my camera was off. We'll always be here to assist and render technical support and advice to every one of you. Thank you so much. It was really great to have you all. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye,
Thank you, Angela. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Have a lovely day. Bye.
Thank
Bye,
you.
bye, bye.